we hear the names Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard, most of us immediately picture a perfect Hollywood couple. Smiling photos, family outings, and those small fun moments shared on social media all make it seem like their life is flawless. But have you ever wondered what hides behind every smile? Every couple faces challenges, and celebrities are no different. The life of Kristen and Dax, which always appears glamorous and picture perfect, is not as simple as it seems. Today, we're going to explore a side of their relationship that Hollywood rarely shows, a side you probably haven't seen before. This is a story of struggles and challenges that remain hidden from the cameras, felt only behind closed doors. Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard are widely loved not just for their acting careers, but also for the way they seem to balance fame and family life. On the surface, they are the kind of couple fans admire. Funny, caring, and deeply devoted to each other. From playful interviews to heartwarming social media posts, they have built an image of a relationship that is strong and unshakable. Yet behind this polished public image, the reality is often much more complicated. Like many couples in Hollywood, they face pressures that most people cannot even imagine. Constant attention from the media, the expectation to maintain a perfect family persona, and the need to manage demanding careers create stress that is invisible to the public eye. While the world sees a happy, charismatic couple, there is another side to their story. A side where struggles, sacrifices, and personal challenges quietly exist, shaping their marriage in ways few people notice. From the outside, Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard's marriage seems effortless, almost flawless. Fans see the laughter, the public displays of affection, and the family vacations that look straight out of a magazine. But appearances can be deceiving. Behind closed doors, the couple often had to hide their disagreements, personal struggles, and the small cracks that naturally form in any long-term relationship. In Hollywood, there is an unspoken expectation to maintain a perfect image, and for Kristen and Dax, this meant keeping arguments private and presenting a united front no matter how tense things might have been. Some days, even small disagreements would be tucked away before the cameras rolled, replaced by smiles and light-hearted jokes for the public. This constant balancing act created invisible pressure, forcing them to mask their true emotions while continuing to fulfill the roles of celebrity couple, loving parents, and supportive partners. In many ways, the perfection everyone admired was a carefully maintained facade, hiding a more complicated human reality underneath. Even the strongest relationships face hidden challenges. And for Kristen and Dax, one of the most difficult struggles was personal habits and inner battles that never made it to the headlines. Fictionally speaking, there were moments when one of them wrestled with unhealthy coping mechanisms, stress and pressure from work that threatened to create distance between them. These struggles were carefully concealed from the public, not because they wanted to lie, but because they wanted to protect their family and their careers from unnecessary scrutiny. Arguments occasionally flared over issues rooted in these private struggles, leaving both feeling frustrated, isolated, and unsure of how to communicate effectively. The stress of hiding these personal battles only added to the tension, creating emotional weight that could not be seen in interviews or photos. It was a side of their marriage that few could imagine, a silent fight against personal demons fought in private while still trying to maintain the loving image fans adored. Even the strongest relationships face hidden challenges. And for Kristen and Dax, one of the most difficult struggles was deeply personal and completely hidden from the public eye. Fictionally speaking, one of them sometimes turned to unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with the constant pressures of work, fame, and family life. These weren't daily problems that ruined their marriage, but small recurring habits that caused tension behind closed doors. Some nights ended in frustration and quiet arguments when exhaustion or stress made even small disagreements feel larger than they were. On the outside, they laughed together at premieres and posted happy family pictures, but in private, they were navigating a maze of emotions. Guilt, worry, and the fear that if the public ever knew, It would shatter the image of their perfect life. These struggles weren't just about individual habits, they seeped into their communication. Simple conversations sometimes escalated into emotional arguments because the underlying stress wasn't addressed openly. They worried about burdening each other or letting their problems spill into their children's lives, which only made the silence heavier. Both had to learn to hold space for each other while managing their own personal challenges. The weight of these private battles often left them emotionally drained, making it harder to connect in the way they wanted. And yet, despite these struggles, they found ways to support each other, demonstrating that even behind the smiles, love could endure, but not without effort, understanding, and resilience. This side of their relationship, fictional though it is, shows a truth many couples face. The biggest battles are often invisible, fought quietly and rarely captured by the cameras. For Kristen and Dax, balancing two demanding careers with family life was a constant source of tension, even though it was never visible to the public. Fictionally speaking, there were times when one's work schedule would clash with the other's, creating feelings of resentment or guilt. Long hours on set, late-night script readings and back-to-back promotions meant they often had to miss important family moments, birthdays, or quiet evenings at home. On top of that, the fear of disappointing fans, studios and colleagues added invisible pressure to always appear cheerful and together, even when they were exhausted or stressed. These career demands sometimes forced them to make sacrifices they didn't want to, such as postponing vacations, missing family dinners, or prioritising public appearances over private moments. Over time, these small sacrifices built up, creating moments of frustration and emotional fatigue. Arguments occasionally arose, not over love, but over unmet expectations, misunderstandings, and the simple human need to feel valued and supported. And yet, despite the tension, they constantly tried to find balance, carving out small moments to reconnect, whether it was a late-night phone call on a busy shoot or a quiet weekend away from the spotlight. This tension between public success and private happiness is a struggle many couples face, but for Kristen and Dax, it was amplified by the bright glare of fame, making every compromise feel both necessary and emotionally draining. Even when love is strong, emotional distance can quietly grow between partners, and for Kristen and Dax, this was one of the most subtle but powerful challenges they faced. Fictionally, there were times when small disagreements or lingering frustrations led to silent dinners, tense mornings, and moments where both felt misunderstood. These were never dramatic fights for the cameras. Instead, they were quiet, almost invisible struggles. Words left unsaid, feelings bottled up, and emotions carefully hidden behind smiles. Over time, this emotional distance sometimes made them feel isolated, even while living under the same roof and raising their children together. The problem wasn't a lack of love, but the weight of accumulated pressures from personal struggles, career demands, and the constant need to maintain a public image. Both had to learn to navigate these moments with patience, empathy, and subtle communication. They might have shared a joke or a playful gesture in front of others, but in private there were nights when they quietly worked to rebuild connection, sometimes through long conversations, small acts of kindness, or simply sharing space without expectations. This distance was never permanent, but it reminded them that even the strongest relationships require constant attention and emotional honesty. Behind the glamorous photos and public appearances, Kristen and Dax were navigating a deeply human struggle. The effort to remain emotionally present for each other despite the world constantly pulling them in different directions. Even in the strongest relationships, emotional distance can slowly creep in, and for Kristen and Dax, it became one of the quietest yet most challenging struggles. Fictionally speaking, there were periods when they would go days without truly connecting on a personal level. Simple disagreements about schedules, parenting decisions, or household responsibilities sometimes escalated silently into walls of frustration and withdrawal. They might sit in the same room, work on their own tasks, and exchange polite words, but beneath the surface, Both were carrying unspoken feelings of hurt or disappointment. This wasn't dramatic shouting or public scandal. It was the subtle kind of distance that builds quietly over time, almost invisible to everyone except those living it. The emotional distance often stemmed from accumulated pressures, personal struggles, career demands, the weight of public expectations, and the constant need to maintain a flawless image. One night, for example, after a long day on set, one of them might feel drained and misunderstood, while the other, equally exhausted, assumed everything was fine. This created small, invisible gaps, missed opportunities for emotional intimacy, moments of vulnerability left unshared, and a quiet feeling of being alone despite being together. Over time, these gaps could make even the deepest love feel fragile, if not actively nurtured. Yet what made their relationship endure was the conscious effort to bridge this distance. They would find small ways to reconnect. A shared cup of coffee in the early morning, a late-night conversation where each could speak without judgment, or simple gestures of support that reminded the other they were seen and valued. They learned that emotional intimacy required attention, patience, and sometimes uncomfortable honesty. Even when one of them felt frustrated or misunderstood, they made the effort to listen, to acknowledge feelings, and to repair moments of disconnection before they grew into larger issues. Behind the glamorous photos, public appearances, and viral videos, this was the real work of their marriage. Two people navigating the complexities of life, learning to stay emotionally connected despite exhaustion, pressure, and the endless demands of fame. It was quiet, invisible, and profoundly human. A reminder that love is not just about moments of joy, but also about commitment during times of strain. Even amidst hidden struggles, Kristen and Dax reached a turning point in their fictional journey, a moment when they realised that love alone wasn't enough to keep their relationship strong. They understood that without conscious effort, the pressures of fame, personal habits, career demands, and emotional distance could slowly erode the bond they cherished. Fictionally, they began actively seeking ways to rebuild intimacy and trust, realising that addressing problems privately was more important than maintaining a flawless public image. Therapy, for example, became a tool to help them communicate openly, express emotions without fear of judgment, and understand each other on a deeper level. They also introduced small rituals into daily life, dedicating undisturbed time for conversation, leaving notes of encouragement, or taking short weekend breaks to reconnect away from cameras and schedules. Fictionally, one simple act, like sharing a quiet walk after a long day, often reminded them why they fell in love in the first place. This turning point wasn't a sudden fix, but a gradual shift. They began to acknowledge their struggles instead of hiding them, to forgive small mistakes instead of letting resentment grow, and to prioritise each other even when life felt overwhelming. It demonstrated a critical truth. Even in Hollywood, where appearances matter most, real love requires effort, understanding, and vulnerability. By actively working together, Kristen and Dax managed to transform challenges into opportunities for growth, proving that resilience, communication, and patience could help a relationship survive pressures that might otherwise have torn it apart. The fictional story of Kristen and Dax's marriage reminds us that even the most admired relationships have hidden struggles. From personal battles and career pressures to emotional distance, the challenges they faced are familiar to many couples, even outside of Hollywood. One key takeaway is that love alone isn't always enough. Relationships require ongoing effort, communication, and understanding. The way they navigated their struggles teaches us that acknowledging problems, seeking help, and making small daily gestures of care can make a significant difference in maintaining a strong bond. Another lesson is that public appearances rarely tell the full story. Behind every smile, there may be hidden battles and unspoken frustrations, and this is perfectly human. Kristen and Dax's fictional journey shows that resilience comes not from avoiding challenges, but from confronting them together, supporting each other through difficult moments, and finding ways to reconnect when distance grows. Finally, it reminds viewers that love is not about perfection. It's about effort, patience, and the willingness to work through hardships, even when no one is watching. Their story, though fictionalised, is a powerful reminder that every couple faces struggles, and the real triumph lies in staying committed, compassionate, and connected despite them all.